if you wanted to. But yeah, so tonight, just to give you like a kind of rough idea of the schedule, we'll be hearing from Lily Rosengard with some queer poetry. Then Ellis is going to be hosting a kind of open discussion with our amazing panelists, who I'll let the panelists introduce themselves in a sec. We've got some more spoken word poetry from Nash from Black Ops Poetry as well after the discussion. Then we'll do a kind of audience Q&A where any attendees can kind of ask any questions, and then Georgia is going to lead a kind of session at the end to discuss the one thing to watch, one thing to read, and one thing to listen to recommendations that we recommended a couple of weeks ago. So if anyone's had a chance to complete those, then we'll have a little session to basically discuss and review them for anyone who wants to at the end. So that'll be at about 9:40. And yeah, if anyone has any questions throughout the whole event or discussion that you'd like to put to the panelists at the end, please send them in the chat, either directly to Ellis, in like DM them to her in the chat, or just to everyone, and then we'll hopefully get around to reading those out, or you can read them yourself if you'd like to. Yeah, cool. Just quickly, I thought I'd give a couple of like kind of definitions of terms that might be used tonight, just because I think it's always good to have some clarity on that. I'm sure most of you will probably know these anyway, but just for anyone who doesn't, I'll just quickly go through a couple of kind of acronyms and terms that you might hear. So all these definitions are from an organisation called the Purple Rain Collective. Some of you might have heard of them. They're a collective space for queer, trans and intersex people of colour in the UK to mobilise, converse and develop strategies for safety, resistance and liberation. So they're a really amazing collective, and they've got this really cool like glossary of all the different relevant terms on their website, so I'd recommend checking that out. But yeah, just to kind of gloss over a couple of them. BAME is Black, Asian and minority ethnic, so it's a term used to refer to basically non-white people from the UK. POC is similar, so it stands for person of colour, and BIPOC is an extension of that, so it's Black, Indigenous and people of colour. LGBTQI stands for lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer and intersex, and it's typically used to refer to anyone who identifies as non-heterosexual and or non-cisgender. And cisgender is a prefix for people who have a gender identity that matches the sex that they were assigned with at birth, as opposed to transgender, which would be vice versa. And then queer is sometimes used as an umbrella term for LGBTQ, but inversely is also used as a political identity that is affiliated with left-wing radical anti-mainstream commercialization of LGBTQ groups. So queer is also used to mean an attraction to different genders, including your own, but a sexual attraction that is not fixed to binary gendered sexualities such as lesbian, gay, women or men, but could include those identities too. So and queer, although it has since been reclaimed, it did historically used to be used as a derogatory term, so it's not necessarily kind of embraced by all members of the LGBTQ community, so it's best to kind of let people identify themselves as queer if they want to, but not necessarily to label people as queer straight off the bat. And then QTIBIPOC is an acronym used to abbreviate queer, trans, intersex, Black people and people of colour, and specifically describes people who have heritages from continents of Africa, Asia, Indigenous peoples of the Americas and Australia, and are invested in queer politics and organising. Again, this is all stuff that I'm getting from the Purple Rain website. So obviously people have different definitions of these terms, but generally speaking, I think these are accepted. And then, yes, intersectionality. Lastly, you may hear people talk about it's a theory with roots in Black feminism, and it considers the effects of race, class, gender, sexuality and other social identities and related systems of oppression as interlocking rather than as mutually exclusive entities. So importantly, these intersecting identities cannot be separated from one another in lived experiences. All right, cool. So hopefully that clarifies things a bit. I'll put a link to the glossary in case anyone wants to have a look at it. And now, I'll hand over. Oh, actually, no. So sorry, we're going to now hand over to Lily, who's going to we'll play a video of some of her queer spoken word. Lily, are you here right now?
Hi, yeah, I'm here.
Hey. Oh, hey, we can see you. Hey. I'll play the video that you sent, but do you mind just quickly introducing yourself before I do?
Yeah, of course. My name is Lily. My pronouns are she and her. I am a spoken word poet, and I usually do my spoken word under the name of Rosie Rosenberg, but queer identities, race, gender, feminism, all forms of experience and discrimination, etc., that I have faced, and the great communities that I have been able to be a part of through working in this sphere and being an activist, etc. So I'm really pleased to be here, and I sent a video to Ella, so hopefully that will be helpful. The poem that I briefly introduced it on the video, but it's a poem that I wrote this year for Pride 2020 and shared on my Instagram for Pride this year. So I hope people enjoy it, and I'm happy to take questions or whatever afterwards.
Cool. Thank you so much. I'm going to share my screen now and then share the video. So this is going to be about roughly 10 minutes long, just to give you an idea of time. Hopefully, I don't know which one comes first.
Hi, my name is Lily, and I am here to read some of my spoken word poetry, and this one is called My Queer Thoughts, and I wrote it this year for Pride Month 2020. Queer means protest. Queer means...
Okay. Sorry guys, technical issue. Lily.
Yeah, I can read it if that's easier.
Yeah, I think that might be better, because I couldn't download the videos from WhatsApp, so it may be better if you
just read it.
Yeah, if that's okay.
Can do it live instead. It's actually better because I could barely watch myself. I had to turn the volume to 0. I couldn't and then turn the computer away, so it's easier if I actually just do it.
Cool. All right. Thanks so much.
Okay. Let me know if there's ever any technical issues, but yeah, I'll just go for it then. So called My Queer Thoughts. Queer means protest. Queer means being full of pride because you are proud. Queer means stop fucking judging others. Queer means be true to who you are, means liberating yourself from society's conventions. Queer means unlearning. It means re-understanding, means making no assumptions, and means looking beyond surface relations. Queer means so much more than just corporate pride at pride marches these days. Queer means never forget that pride started as a riot. Queer means pride was a movement that was started by Black trans women, and we need to not ever forget that. Queer means we need to stop white rainbow washing history. Means no pride without liberation, means fighting for trans rights, means never giving up for justice, and means fighting for every single letter of LGBTQIA+. Queer means swiping your dating profile from society's default of men to everyone. Queer means subvert your nice normal of acceptability. Queer means doing your best in a world that wants to categorize you. Queer means turning internalized shame into joy, means making yourself visible even though it feels safer to stay invisible. Queer means beginning to be truthful with yourself so you can share your truth with others. Queer means finding your community, means coming out to your loved ones and them telling you you're not trans, and you screaming back, how can you be so ignorant, hurtful, stigmatizing, and unaccepting all at once? Queer means having to come out again because they didn't believe you the first time. Queer means not coming out again because you're tired of not being accepted or believed. Queer means your mental health is blamed for your queerness. Queer means having to explain the definition of queer for the 100th time. Queer means definition shift and the same as 50 years ago, so stop telling me otherwise. Queer means stop invalidating my lived experiences. Queer means sometimes just not talking about it because I'm tired of explaining myself. It means it's not just surface level. It's not just a phase. It was never just a phase. Maybe straight was the phase. Queer means I am worthy, means I'm my own person and I could decide how to define without the presuppositions and your assumptions of me. Queer means it's a journey for others to understand you. Queer means not always being out for your own safety and mental health, but queer also means being out because of your safety and your mental health. Queer means people still don't believe you when you tell them you're queer, even if they've heard you this far, because they haven't met any of the women you've dated, but only the men. Queer means you wonder why people aren't out when society is rife with homophobia and your very language is violent. Queer means finding your supportive love bubbles and surrounding yourself with your queer sisters. Means I might feel confident in disclosing this to you today, but I might not tomorrow. Queer means openness, means closeness, means struggle, means riot, means rights. Queer means my rights don't mean you have less rights. I don't know if you've heard, but it's not pie. Queer is power, queer is powerless. No, but queer is power. Queer means meaningless sex, means meaningful sex, means sex or no sex. And no, queer sex is not your sexy fetish. Queer does not mean basically straight if you're a woman, but basically gay if you're a man. Queer means fuck you, means we might fuck, or we might not. Means meeting you and your friends at a busy student nightclub and making out against a pillar on the top floor while straight men ogle. Straight men, fuck off and stop ogling. Queer means moving the sofa outside to watch documentaries and eat strawberries, means saving up your queerness for freedom in a new city. Queer means having to move country to be your authentic self. Queer means having to move back again, means you feel like you've gone backwards. Queer means not growing up seeing people like you in the mainstream, means not understanding if in that moment you fancy everyone or you fancy no one. Queer means coming out as bi and then pan and then queer and then realizing all these labels are bullshit and meant to box us in, so fuck it. Queer means what is it anyone else's business what I choose to do with my life? Queer means opening the door and a sausage dog escaping through the feet of the Hungarian Vizsla dog and us running after them with me and my slippers on our first date. Queer means picnics in the park and you taking great photos of me for the gram. Queer means responding to their Bumble profile pic with a queen emoji and saying you have the exact same top in blue. Queer means being simultaneously turned on yet jealous of their bum. Queer means being open, means not being open, means wholesome, means not wholesome, means laughing together at the paradox of knowing more about what to do with a body with a penis than a body that resembles your own. Queer means tenderness, roughness, means making it up as you go along and trusting your instincts. It means other people making it their business what you choose to do with your life, even though they wouldn't give a shit if it was a hetero relationship. Queer means everyone's opinion and not your own, means sniggers, means belittled, means you're simultaneously visible, yet also invisible. It means you're not a proper queer because you've never brought home a woman. It means, oh, it's just a phase, means trust me, it's not just a phase. It means fuck you, means fuck me, means what the fuck is even going on? Means fuck, this is great. Means queen, yes, means I am your queen. No means you are my queen. Queer means we're both fucking queens and there's more than enough queens to go around. Queer means praying not to bump into anyone you know and making up a backstory about being colleagues in your mind. Queer means recognizing that that is heteronormative bullshit, but realizing you too are part of the system. Queer is hating yourself for having this conversation in your mind while sitting opposite such a wonderful, shining human. Queer is not knowing who's leaning in for the kiss, so you both lean in and bump noses. Queer is going to the cinema on a date like a 12-year-old and crying like a baby at A Star Is Born. Queer is reinventing dating conventions. Queer is them texting you after saying, I think we're better as friends, and now 2 years on, you still like each other's pictures and comment with the fire emoji. Queer means love, and queer means LOV love. Queer means it's a whole load of mess, but I wouldn't change it for the world. So that is part 1 of my queer thoughts. I hope you enjoyed it. I don't know how much time we're probably running out, but I posted that on my Instagram at Lily Gets Lost for Pride, and then I asked people through my stories and in my caption if people wanted to share what queer means to them, to make a sort of community poem of what everyone on their Instagram social media channels thinks queer means to them. And then I posted that again. So I don't know, Ella, do we have time? This one is a collaboration of Instagram friends.
Yeah, I think I know
shorter.
I know you have to go at some point because you have a job interview. Lily's in America right now, so she has a job interview to go to in a sec. But if you have time, then please, it would be great to hear it.
This one's actually 10 times, 100 times better because I didn't write it. It's the combination of community, and I feel like that's what being part of the queer community means to me. It's everyone together. It's not one person's thought. So I'll just do it quickly before you get tired of me, and I'll head off. But so this one is, the other one was called My Queer Thoughts, so this is called Our Queer Thoughts, and it follows the same structure. So queer means, am I queer enough? Queer means you've always been queer enough. Queer means who's the gatekeeper of queerness? Queer means there is no gatekeeper of queerness. Queer truly does mean you are queer enough. You have always been queer enough. Queer means community, history and freedom. Queer means out and proud, queer and loud, and fear and doubt in silence for so long. Queer means touching freedom with your fingertips and not drawing back, not running scared, but taking hold, feeling the static shock and knowing it's the start of a second life, fuller and brighter. Queer means refusing to fit in and embracing the differences. Queer means embracing the ever-changing parts of you. It means recognizing that sexuality and gender are a spectrum that we exist on through different parts of our lives. Queer means having the ability to express yourself honestly in the moment, not letting the pain of the past or expectations about the future define you in the present. Queer means the only definition that matters is yours. Queer means relating to any love, no matter the gender or none. Means being open-minded and hearted and non-judgmental. Queer means educating myself towards issues I might not know within the LGBTQIA+. Queer means LGBTQIA+ is not a monolith. It means your relationship status does not affect your sexuality. Queer means being in a hetero relationship does not mean you are therefore straight. Queer means feeling constant imposter syndrome, that you're taking up space and don't belong. Means never feeling imposter syndrome because this is your space and you do belong. Queer means there is a never-ending process of loving who I am and not letting society dictate how I evolve as a queer human. So that's it. And thank you so much.
Thanks very much, Lily. That was beautiful. So I'm going to hand over to Ella, who's going to basically do the panel discussion. Lily is part of the panel, but if you have to go soonish, then just let us know when you need to go, and you can participate.
I'm fine. I'm free for the next half hour.
Perfect. Cool. Ellis, take it away.
Hello. So yeah, I just wanted to well, thank you, Lily, first of all. That was amazing. And I just wanted everyone else on the panel to introduce themselves, just give their name, their pronouns, and sort of like why they're here today, like what they're wanting to contribute. So Nash, as you're first on my screen, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, so I'm Nash. I'm a poet, a nurse, a student of life. And I don't know, I'm here to be fed as much as I'm hoping I can feed you. That's all I hope to get from this, and that's all I hope to give you. It is just food for thought. Yeah, like just an imperfect guy in like an odd world. But yeah, that's me.
Thank you. Nick, if you could introduce yourself.
Yeah, sure. Hi, everyone. My name's Nick. I use they them pronouns. And oh, hello. I am here twofold. Alice asked me to be here, and I'm excited to be involved. But also, I want to be here. I have had a role specifically around inclusion and around sort of creating accessible spaces for people with multiple minority experiences, and also I am one of those people with those intersecting identities. So got two things to go off, and what I'm hoping to get from today is just, as Nash put so well, just to kind of absorb social osmosis, you know, and also to just give my 2 cents in terms of my lived experience, because that's my main thing that I can go off. And yes, that's me. Hi.
Thank you, Nick. And then our other 2 guests are sort of representatives from their organisations. So if Healing Unite would like to introduce themselves. I think you need to turn your mic on.
Yeah, I think you're on mute.
Hi, can everyone hear me? Oh, brilliant. Hey. So, hi, everyone. My name is Camelia, and my pronouns are she and her. And yeah, I was surprised to receive a message asking to be on a panel. Surprised, but also excited. So I think this is beautiful to explore about, you know, how racism affects LGBT people. And yeah, I'm just so glad to be here and talk about my work and how we can make a change in the community.
Do you mind just quickly just saying about what, like just explaining about Healing Unite and what you do?
Yeah, oh, sorry. So it's a rebranded platform. It was originally called LBQ Women of Colour. I created that when I came out in June 2016 because there was lack of safe spaces. Well, the safe spaces that I was looking for was more or less for just to chill and to connect with people. Well, there's many out there, but I just felt that there was something lacking, and I felt like I could bring a spin on it. So I create various different workshops and health and wellbeing workshops. So we do a collective of different workshops and events, such as panel discussions. We've done a few workshops, dance workshops, yoga workshops, queer parenting support groups, a share and healing circle. What else have we done? We've done so many. A picnic and family fun day for my first year anniversary. And yeah, we're just moving on up. And yeah, I'm ready for it to grow. It's still really new, but it's growing and it's expanding, and we've got a huge following, which is beautiful. We've had loads of people from internationally that came to our events, because we do online events as well as one-to-one in the community. Anything more?
No, thank you, that was perfect. And from Black Beetle Health, if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Hello everyone, nice to see all your faces. This is as good as it's going to get for right now because of the situation, but I'm just going to drop my details down here at the bottom for you. So that should have some information about how sort of who we are and how to reach us, as well as if you are interested in donating to the work that we do, a way to do that. My name is Harvey Kennedy. I am the founding director and CEO of Black Beetle Health. I recognise a few faces, colleagues, friends, acquaintances, people affiliated with what we do. I work as a sexual health coordinator of community engagement at a charity in the northwest of England. But I'm also a doctoral student at the University of Chester in the Faculty of Health and Social Care, studying public health. So I'm a doctoral student, so I'm an academic, I'm a practitioner. I am very passionate about this, identify as gay, and my pronouns are he, him. And the work that we do at Black Beetle Health focuses on sort of the connection between sexual health, mental health, chronic illness and disease management, and also women's health, and ways in which we can bring those conversations to sort of queer spaces. And I didn't realise, actually, Healy and I, that you swapped your name. I was like, who's this person suddenly following us? You know, and I realised it was you. I've been engaging with you for ages. So I was really pleased to see all the connections and how we're growing and morphing and developing and starting to work more collaboratively and finding strength in lockdown and finding our own personal brand as well, as opposed to being part of other brands. I think some of you in this space will understand what I'm saying. So pleasure to meet you all. Looking forward to this conversation.
Thank you, Harvey. That was lovely. So yeah, let's get started. So the first question we wanted to ask everyone was, how does the work either that you hope to do or the work you've previously done seek to combat institutional racism in the UK? Harvey, as we just had your lovely introduction, do you want to get the ball rolling on that one?
Yeah, so based on the work that we do, it focuses on health, well-being, but also equality. And we think about the sort of the equalities aspect of the work we do. There's a particular workshop that I deliver, and it's entitled QTIBIPOC, Health Advocacy Within Race-Based Medical Practice. Now that seems like a really big title, and it's quite an intimidating title, but when you break it down, what it's actually saying is that it's not just health advocacy. I think that health advocacy is really important, but when you break that down into what that means for queer, trans, intersex people of colour, and also looking at LGBT people who identify as Black, Asian and minoritized ethnic individuals, and I use the word minoritized because I believe that's happened to us, and it didn't just happen simultaneously or sort of, you know, as a simultaneously, what did I say? It didn't just happen magically or by chance, you know, it happened to this group, so I use the word minoritized. And I treat these two things as two different things as well, because we recognize that terms like QTIBIPOC are very political, okay? So when we say things like queer, we say things like QTIBIPOC, you are saying, I'm taking an activist position on this, and I've got something to say, as opposed to the more sort of generic LGBT people of colour, which is also really important and really good, but maybe is a little less activist, and there's a time and place for each of those things. So what we do is we look into how to not just advocate for groups, which would be just giving them fish, right, okay? What we're looking to do is to educate, so addressing misinformation, educating on underrepresented communities, signposting to the correct services, and also empowering people to become more informed decision makers, because I think we can hand fish out all day, right? But eventually we're going to realize that we're not actually fixing anything. And when we educate people and give people tools to do that themselves, they suddenly become more informed and they start making decisions that they were not making previously. And so what we talk about when we say health advocacy and QTIBIPOC health advocacy, that is what I mean. Now, the second half of that title is what's called race-based medical practice. Now, this might be something as simple as diagnostic tools in medicine that talk about, oh, when it goes red, that's a problem. What if I don't turn red? That immediately is one of the diagnostic tools removed from my care and from something that could determine what type of medication I should be on, what type of surgery I should be having, what my case might be. And so we say race-based medical practice. We know that the medical model, we have lots of things on the internet right now that are referring to sort of decolonizing the curriculum. You know, we talk about MMU here locally, all the way down to Imperial in London, Imperial College. You know, we've got people who are sort of learning the medical model in its ancient form, which is the very westernized version. We're looking at colors of red. We're looking at jaundice, which is when your liver's not working appropriately and it builds up something called bilirubin, okay? And you might see people's skin turning quite yellow. we're back to skin again. My skin doesn't go yellow. Okay, so practitioners understanding that to sort of make that diagnosis adequately, they'd have to do an eyelid check, right? But they don't know they can do an eyelid check or a nail check to try and figure out other ways of making sure they make a correct diagnosis. And so when we talk about race-based medical practice, it's that box. Are you black? Are you white? Okay, that's not working for me, because what if I'm mixed race? Are you looking for risk factors that are only appearing in black people? Are you looking for risk factors that are more commonly seen in Asian groups? And you're making a diagnosis based on what exactly? So the way that practitioners and medics and nurses are looking at things, and the way that researchers are looking to collect information, we just want people to consider what race-based medical practice is, and how to think and work differently, so that the result and the health outcomes for groups like the ones we're discussing this evening will be improved. And that's the short summary of what we do.
That was a beautiful summary. Nash, it'd be interesting to hear sort of how you feel the work you do combats racism, because obviously it's more an arts background as opposed to health, so it's very different worlds. Yeah, how do you feel?
So I tried to create. Okay, so I used to run open mic nights in London, and I used to go to one called Let's Talk About Gay, Sex and Drugs. And what I kind of found in that space was that not that anybody had intentionally set out to make this a white space, but if you look at the venue that this night was in, it was in Soho, and Soho had over the years become a space where people of color had, let's say, been pushed out of. And there were a few of us still milling around there, but we kind of, like, I'm someone that kind of straddles all worlds. So like, it's never something that I noticed until I kind of one day looked around and thought, shit, there's no one that I know around here. Sorry, please, am I allowed to swear on this? I hope, oh, okay, thank you. So yeah, I looked around, I was like, oh gosh, okay, so I'm like the only one left here, like, do you know what I mean? So then, Let's Talk About Gay, Sex and Drugs ended. And I was like, well, what can I do? And what can I do to bring people of color and barge our way back into this space, right? Because although you may have been like, oh yeah, let's see what you're wearing, you can't come in today, you look too, what's the word they like to use, urban. I was like, no, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna set up a night called Let's Talk Queer POC. And make sure that people know it will be people of color that are coming into this venue, and we're going to be talking about queer and things that affect, as how we would say, our minoritized community, and communities rather. So yeah, so then I started writing, and originally, I was writing about me being gay a lot. And I kind of found myself, like, I felt like although I was connecting with people, there was always something missing through that. And I wasn't completely talking about what it was to be Nash in society as it is. And that's when you can see roughly around about, 4 or so years ago, there's a kind of switch. And it starts with a poem that I wrote called Buzzwords. And that's just talking about, like, I'm talking about those, people that like go back to where you came from, and all of those kind of statements, and what about black on black crime, and all these kind of arguments that people come at you with, and what it is, and I can't get away from the fact that although I may be black, there's also homophobia within the black community. So I've always been I've been fighting on two fronts like all my life. So anyway, then we get to where we are now. And there is stuff in between that, but I think the poem that you'll be shown later on, I've got to a point now where I just don't care. I don't care if I offend you when I talk about what it is to be black. I just don't care if you're uncomfortable. I really just think, and that's kind of like, I want people to be, what I want is for people to be comfortable being uncomfortable talking about race. I don't want people to feel bad, because I think when people feel bad, people become defensive, and you no longer have a conversation. But when you're uncomfortable, you're more likely to discuss something and try and figure out why it is you're uncomfortable. So that's kind of what I kind of want to change. What I would like to do is change a narrative And you know, it's not a case of not pointing fingers or whatever, but I just want to kind of let's yeah, that's kind of where I'm going. I hope that makes sense. I'm a bit wishy anyway, so yeah, go on, sorry.
Thank you for that. No, that made perfect sense. It made almost too much sense, so don't worry. I just wanted to move on to the next question, and I wanted to see from like the perspective of Lily and Nick and Heal Unite, like what challenges sort of intersecting identities pose for many like queer ethnic minorities. So Lily, did you want to go ahead?
Yeah, so as the previous speaker just mentioned, like there's so many challenges when you have so many intersecting identities. I mean, every single person in the world has different intersecting identities and they all relate to each other. And to see people, you know, and one day, for me, for instance, one day being seen as a woman, like, oh, do you face discrimination because you're a woman, or do you face discrimination because you're an Asian woman, or do you face discrimination because you have mental health problems, or do you face discrimination as a queer person? Like, that's not how it works. Like, we're one person. All of these things interact all at once, all the time. And even when the person is maybe sometimes trying to be well-meaning, ask you, well, was that sexism? Was that, it's like, I don't even know myself sometimes, because it's all happening at once. You cannot, they're inextricably linked. And I find that myself, I'm mixed race, my mum's side of the family is Chinese, and I find that just because you're a person of color doesn't mean that you're not racist. Like, I find that my Chinese side of my family is even more racist than my white side of my family. So it's like all these different intersections again, and I think being a minority, the way that we've been taught the world is try to be as close to whiteness as possible, because when you're closer to whiteness, you're further away from discrimination and harm. So, for instance, I can only speak from my family. I feel that because they immigrated to Canada, that it was sort of like a protection mechanism, because they had to be closer, like discriminate against others because then they're less discriminated against. And all these things are so crazy and complex. And we just, especially right now, we are like, in the wake of the murder of George Floyd, we are talking about Black lives, and that needs to be center stage. And I think that the people of color, such as myself and my family, etc., who aren't Black people of color but are other people of color, we really need to step up and be stronger allies, and not always try to turn it on us. Oh, well, as Asians we experience this. It's like, no, it's about Black lives, and that's what we need to be focusing on. So yeah, I didn't mention the queer stuff in that, but you know, that's a whole nother layer.
That's a big old mush, don't worry. It's, yeah, like you say, it's hard to sort of like identify why something wasn't quite right, why you were feeling that discomfort in a situation, and it's like, which part of this is happening, especially in like professional settings, which I know Harvey speaks a lot about with Black Beetle Health. But if you want to move to Camellia, and sorry, I've caught you while you're yawning, but but yeah, if you could turn your mic on and just sort of give us your insight to sort of, yeah, having like those multiple identities and like the difficulty around them intersecting.
Sorry, you called me yawning. I'm a mum, by the way, just to let you know. I think I'm probably the only mother here.
That's like another identity to, you know.
Absolutely, absolutely. So that in itself, you know, I often do get discriminated about in regards to, well, I identify as a lesbian. I am attracted to Black, cisgendered and trans women, and non-binary people. And I'm maybe just speaking from my personal perspective, maybe because, you know, I'm a dark-skinned Black woman. But oftentimes I do feel judged and stereotyped, and hence why I had to create Heal and Unite, because of what I've been enduring for all these years of being a closeted lesbian, and then finding my courage to say, do you know what, this is who I am. After like 32 years, I just said, this is who I am in the wake of my grandmother dying. And just in like the wake of, George Floyd dying, it's so sad, really, for people just to only now realize that Black Lives Matter. And still, it's almost like, I don't feel like people feel like Black Lives Matter. And I think it's just, for me, I just think it's just a form of capitalism, and just to get, I don't know, I just personally, I just don't feel like some people really appreciate Black people, especially dark-skinned people. So yeah, the discrimination is a big thing. And even in regards to I've got a GoFundMe called Black Women with the X LGBT Healing Fund, and it's we're trying to raise £2,000 to support those that cannot access our monthly events. We host various different monthly events in the community, and we only hire Black and POC LGBT women and non-binary people facilitators. I will leave it in the chat, thank you. Yeah, and just the fact that me and my other friends, Sade, we work so hard, and we hardly had any response or any support. We've only up to £600+ and it's been open for the past month. And that just says a lot, really, in terms of Black Lives Matter, or sharing our post, or people helping, how can we fundraise? This is a very important platform. And it just goes to show, for me, a lot of times I just felt like I don't want to, it's really hard for me to have this platform. It's really difficult as a mum, working mum, and I have, and I'm doing this platform, and it's voluntary. And so much effort goes into it, but I don't think people really know and understand how Black people really feel. Yeah, so sorry, it's really personal and it's quite emotional and traumatizing for me. So it's a little bit,
yeah, please only share.
Been a bit emotional about it, but yeah, I just feel like, do we really matter? And the fact that, in terms of racism, it's covert and overt. It's always happening. Even today, I've got my hair done today, and the difference in terms of how people look at me with my hair looking more ethnic than it is with like straight hair. You see the difference in how people even treat me, like what Lily was saying in terms of like colorism, and the whiter you are, or nearer to white you are, is the more acceptable and you're more seen within the community. And the more darker you are, is you're unseen and unheard. And oftentimes I do feel unseen and unheard. And hence why I did create Heal and Unite, because racism is so embedded into us from slavery, from our ancestors were slaves over 400 and something years, that it's almost internalized in us as well, that there's a lot of self-hate, there's a lot of lack of self-love because of lack of opportunities, the amount of people within the Black community that are, we are still, some of us are still really colonized, that are homophobic. My family are really homophobic, and how it affects me and how it affects many people, many of my clients who come to my events, they come to my events as a safe outlet because they're not able to come out to their families. And a lot of them are in their mid-30s, late 30s, whatever ages. But it just goes to show how much we need safe spaces and how much our community are being ignored.
Thank you so much for sharing. It's like really valuable to see your insight, like you say, like as a mother, as a dark-skinned woman, like it's so powerful and so rare. So yeah, if people could spare any few quid to this GoFundMe, it'd be much appreciated. Now Nick here actually wrote a whole resource on intersecting identities and intersectionality. So I'll just let them, go ahead.
That one about that, yeah. So I did write a resource, and it's titled, actually I've been thinking about this recently, that I wrote it in the end of last year, and already the language in it, I would change most of it, actually. And that's just how much I've learned in myself, but also just, I think, how much language evolves so quickly. And it's still a cool resource. And so I created this resource about intersecting identities, specifically looking at sexuality, gender identity, age, and race. And this all stemmed from a conversation with my mum. So I am mixed race. My mum is white, my dad is Indian, both are first generation immigrants. And yeah, really interestingly, I came out as non-binary again, end of last year-ish, who knows, but I've been presenting as I do for the past 2 years. And yeah, I was speaking to my mum, and she was like, and I was explaining to her what a barrier something like toilets are, and she was shocked, surprised, and I don't get how she was shocked, but she was shocked. She was like, they scream at you when you go to the toilet? What is this? And that led me to create this resource that I think, especially in activist circles, especially being at those intersecting identities, we know a lot more than people who don't have that lived experience. And I think really changing that language around it, and this resource essentially tries to use really accessible standard language. Any big words have proper definitions to them, but again, I would have changed that language again, but I made it with this view to start that discussion. So someone who doesn't have that lived experience of having those intersecting identities can maybe have a little insight. And like the change I saw in my mum as soon as she knew what that was like for me, as soon as I explained it to her, I thought, okay, maybe this is what people are missing. They just don't get it because they don't experience it. And so I created that resource. And I think in answer to your question around what does that mean when people have those intersecting identities, I do think loneliness is a word that comes to mind. This feeling of otherness, this feeling of, okay, as Lily put so well, like, is this because of my gender identity, or is this because of, like, just not feeling, I think for me, it's that, where's my community? Like, I've been active in Manchester's LGBT quote unquote scene for the past like 6 years, and throughout university I was one of 2 people of color who regularly attended, and yeah, I think it's that feeling of no one's gonna get it. I shouldn't go on about it because no one's gonna get it, but I think now I'm at the point of feeling like, well, all of this is me. I'm not gonna just tell you what my queerness looks like, and I'm not just going to tell you what my race looks like. Sorry, I am going off on one, but I wrote notes.
No, go off, it's fine.
Okay. I think a big thing when you're at the intersection of something, intersection is internalizing other people's shit. Like, you take that in, because so my dad, when I came out to him, quite simply, he thought queerness was a white thing. And since then, he's done the research, and even though he was brought up he's from India. He's from a country where there's such rich queerness, and you look into Hinduism and how it talks about gender, it's so rich, but it is, so I have to have a lot of patience with him, because I do realize, like, that's the impact of something like colonialism. Like, and I've spoken to him about it and he's getting it, but I think it's that never-ending acknowledgement of how everything intersects, and it never stops, and you never stop looking at stuff and be like, oh yeah, but where's the queer person? Like, oh, this could be better with a queer person. And Netflix is ruined. No, I mean, that's me.
Thank you, that was beautiful. So Lily's gone now. I just want to remind you all to give her a follow, like at Lily Gets Lost on Instagram. But moving on to the next question, because obviously it's not all doom and gloom. Like, I love being Black, I love being queer, and I love the weird intersection it creates and like the different understanding you get. So Harvey, I want to ask you sort of what makes you feel most proud, comfortable and empowered?
Okay, you give me 3 options. I'm going to have to systematically break them down because that's who I am.
I'll allow it, don't worry.
So what makes me feel proud is when I produce something that I know I probably had opposition to, but I produce it anyway, and then it affects people in a really positive way. At the start of the journey for Black Beta Health, I think probably in the first week, I come up with the name Black Beta Health, and people are like, why is it Black Beta Health? And you sort of think, can we first celebrate the fact that we're creating a QTIBIPOC platform that's based on health, wellbeing, and equality? Can we celebrate that first, please? There was a celebration, okay? And being the scientist that I am, okay, the reason why I selected Black Beta Health was because of something called biomimicry. And I don't know if anyone's heard of biomimicry, but it's essentially looking into nature and understanding what we can learn from what already exists in nature and apply that to human interactions. We're talking about community, we're talking about diversity, we're talking about interdependence, we're talking about all those different types of things that you learn about. And nature is already showing us how to do that, and we're ignoring that, helping to come up with something more creative. Okay, so that's why I sort of looked through a variety of different types of creatures and animals, and I thought, okay, I'm not going to choose the panther because that's too obvious. So I'm going to choose anything else, and it ended up being the beetle because they communicate vibrations and rhythm. They're hard on the outside and soft on the inside. They can live in solitude or in groups. They're all things that we would describe ourselves as. Okay, and so I'm proud that I pushed through the resistance that came out of that. And I've now, I'm leading a team of people who are producing, and I can't at this point say that I'm producing it. I lead a team of people who are producing loads of amazing content and working hard to really develop what we have. And I'm proud of that. So that's the first one. The second one you said here was comfortable. When I feel comfortable is when I feel that people are understanding what I'm saying. Something that I have to consciously decide to do is to speak really slowly, because my tendency to speak quite quickly, because I feel that I'm going to run out of time, or that someone is going to interrupt me and I will not finish my thought and I would therefore be misunderstood. So I've had to learn how to speak slowly, despite maybe feeling uncomfortable. So if you hear me speaking in other spaces and you hear me speaking really quickly, that is because I'm not sure, based on the faces and the vibes in the room, that people are on my side, that they agree, that they're comprehending what I'm saying. And so that's probably when I feel most comfortable, is when I feel that people are understanding what I'm saying and they're benefiting from what I'm putting out there. As far as empowered, I feel empowered when I see visible change happening in my communities, when I see members of my family, okay, come to me and say things such as, why would you think that I wouldn't accept you after you told me? That's amazingly empowering to say, actually, I'm going to go off and I'm going to see who else I'm going to tell that I'm, proud gay man, and it's empowering because it makes you want to do more of the same. And so when I think about sort of those 3 things, being proud, being comfortable, being empowered, I think of those 3 examples, and I hope that's quite clear.
That was beautiful and concise and eloquent and glorious and and flouncy still, though.
I can go on if you need me to.
I know you can, but just for now. Nash, so what makes you feel proud, comfortable and empowered? It can be each or all of them mushed together, but yeah, carry on.
There is a quote by James Baldwin where he says, the victim who is able to articulate the situation of the victim ceases to be a victim and becomes a threat. I really take that to heart, because I think finally I've got to a point in my life, as I said earlier on, that I don't care if I upset you when I'm telling you my truth. I've learned to be able to say, this is what I see is holding me back. And by doing that, it stops holding me back, because I'm able to say, well, how do I step over this? Like, I spent so long trying to fit into white society. And I use that as a very general term, trying to squash what was a nice triangle or cube into a cylindrical space that wasn't designed for me. And now I no longer try to do it. Do not get me wrong, I inhabit those spaces and people know I'm there, but I no longer attempt to hide my blackness. And I'm really proud of that, because it's taken me a long time. It's the same as, like, you know, trying to hide my queerness, you know, being able to take my mum to a drag night. My mum and you know, she's a mama from Africa, like, all jokes aside, like, to be able to take my mum to a drag night and my mum be like, yes, and click and all stuff, I did that on my 30th. And, like, for me, it was almost all of a sudden, like, these two worlds and these two lives I've been living were now one. And that was so beautiful, and that was so comforting. It was so uplifting. If you look at the way my life is now, after that moment, it's completely different. She's the one that has empowered me. And Camilla, right? I really want you to know that it's Black women. Like, you're holding up a lot of us Black men and other Black women, and that's a lot. Right, that's a lot, and sometimes it can feel heavy, but I just want to say thank you, firstly, like, yeah. So what also makes me feel empowered is the fact that people view me as a threat. Because if you view me as a threat, it means that you think I am valuable in some way, shape, or form, and that I'm here to do something. So good. That's me. That's
Thank you. Yeah, and just the vision of your mum there at the drag, because me and my brother, who's also on this call, we have a very accepting family. Like, my mum, yeah, there he is. Yeah, it's our family have always been around queer people, and it's kind of never, like, I never came out. I never felt I needed to. Because my mum told me a story once about how a friend came out to her and she found it a bit weird, like, okay. So yeah, but then I think it was sometime last year, I was in a room with my grandma, my uncle, two of my uncles, one I'd never met before, and two of my aunties, and my cousin and Kane. And it was the first time all the siblings had been, all my mother's siblings had been together in a room since 1986, I think it was. And RuPaul's Drag Race came on, and my cousin turned to me and went, "This should be interesting," because it was just a room full of Jamaicans and you don't know what way that's going to go. And the only criticism was someone's wig, honestly. So yeah, that was beautiful.
It was a bad wig, to be fair.
Yeah, it was. It was sloppy. Nick, yeah, nice to hear from you.
Oh, yes. So can you repeat the three?
So it is empowered, proud, comfortable. You can choose any of them or expand on all of them.
Okay. So what makes me feel empowered is embracing, I mean, as you can see today, hello. I think embracing as many aspects of me as I can and also want to. So my presentation for me makes me feel empowered. I want to wear makeup today and put a bindi on, and that makes me, that's a big thing for me. What makes me feel comfortable is when I'm gonna make this joke. When I get to pee in peace, you know, when I'm in spaces where someone's gonna give their pronouns first, or when I'm in a space where when someone asks me, "Oh, Nick, where are you from?" and I say, "Oh, well, Wolverhampton," at the end of that interaction, gave you the answer. And I think it's just when I'm given, what makes me feel empowered and comfortable is when I'm given the space to just exist, and when I'm taken seriously, exist and taken seriously. Like, I'm not just the token queer or the token trans person or the token, like, I know I'm there and I'm wanted to be there because of my skill set, because of my knowledge, because of, and maybe that knowledge is based on my lived experience, but I am appreciated rather than used. Yeah, that's my answer.
Thank you, Nick. I just want to say as well, I don't want to embarrass you, but I've known Nick for a while now, and I used to see them in the corner of queer events, and then I got like the opportunity to work with them, and seeing their confidence grow and just seeing how sure of them they are, because they do have so much knowledge and so many skills, and they are such a wonderful person. It's like, I get proud of you all the time. And I'm sad we don't work together anymore. Sorry. So, we'll move on to Camilla.
Okay, so I just want to, just like pronouns are important for me as well. My name, to put the pronunciation is important. So my name's Camellia. Yeah, it's like the beautiful Japanese flower that my mum names me after. Yeah, thank you so much for that, Nash. I just want to say thank you so much for bigging me up. Oftentimes I don't, sometimes I undervalue what I do in the community, and the fact that I'm not long just come out, to be honest, and to learn about the community and to support them, it gives me a sense of feeling proud. I don't know if anyone watches Pride or Pose, or if anyone's watched Pose with Billy Porter. But I feel like Blanca, the mum of the wonderful community that she's in the ballroom. I personally, yeah, Pose is definitely the best show ever, Claudia. Yeah, I feel proud when I put on events each month, other than last month when I had to rebrand my rebrand, register, change everything all over again. My brand. I just feel so proud the fact that I can host different events for the community. I feel empowered when I'm just living in my truth. Me sitting here talking to you, I'm living in my truth. Me talking to my daughter and teaching her about pronouns and non-binary and telling her about the LGBT community, something that my mum never did. Educating her from a young age, because I think it always starts from young to educate. And my son and just the community, and how important it is for visibility and representation to be out there. So yeah, I just feel proud just being me, and it feels great. It feels great. And my other proudest moment is when I went to Black Trans Lives Matter the other day. It was just, it was, I feel like that's what my soul's been destined to do, is to serve the community. I'm a Johnson as well, so I believe my ancestor, my auntie, is Marsha P. Johnson. I really do feel her energy around me a lot of the times. Always fighting for gay rights, fighting for our rights, and fighting for other people. She has a heart of gold, and I do always channel my energy with her. And like you, Ellis, I've got Jamaican heritage, and Nash, so I'm half Jamaican, half Ghanaian, so half African, half Jamaican, yeah. So so sorry, say that again.
That's the same mix as mine and Kane's mum.
Oh, lovely, lovely. So yeah, I've got the best of both worlds. It's good. It's good. I love it. I love just being me, and it's just fabulous. And that's what I'm always encouraging my friends and those that attend my events, is just be you as much as you can be, you know, in the safest way, because I know for some people it's not safe for them to be out and proud and loud, but just in their own kind of way, in a safe environment, just to be proud and loud and just enjoy yourself, your existence. You're worthy. something that society doesn't tell us as Black and POC people that we're worthy, you know? So often having to remind that affirmation that we are worthy. We're worthy of love, worthy of greatness. We deserve all empowerment, strength, unity, love, all of that good stuff. We deserve it. Just being us without having to earn it.
That was really beautiful.
Thank you.
So yeah, moving on less from the personal and going back to like institutional racism and or like the queer phobia that comes into that. So how can we really start to embrace and celebrate diversity in terms of race, gender, and sexuality within UK institutions? Harvey, do you want to tackle this one?
Yeah, I'm jumping right in. Okay, so there's two things that we feel. We either feel fear or we feel love. Okay, we either feel fear or we feel love. So depending which one we're feeling, we react in a certain way. We make decisions, we say things, we act, maybe distant or maybe close to someone. What I think a lot of people might be dealing with, parents, aunts, uncles, people within the community who do not understand the queer experience and haven't really done the work to understand the queer experience, is that they're feeling afraid. They're not mad at you, they don't hate you, they don't want you to do all the things that they say potentially that they want to happen to you because you're just making this ridiculous decision and you're making everyone's life difficult. They are afraid. Okay, and once we understand that people express fear in different types of ways, then we can also recognize love when we see it. And so when people love us, they go the distance to recognize our pronouns. They go the distance to understand that what things like choice sound like to us, or lifestyle sound like to us, and force us into a position where we have to say things potentially such as, if I'd had a choice, I wouldn't have chosen to. Okay, why should we have to go that direction? Okay, so my angle on diversity and understanding this as we see it today is underpinned by those two things: fear or love. I think that from an academic perspective, all the way down to an artistic or a clinical, or whatever the spectrum of institutions could be, because there's so many, that when we recognize that people have the right to love who they want to love, and we recognize that people are all different, and that it's people's differences that make life exciting and worth living, and engaging. It's the differences. It's wanting to hear something different other than what you always hear about yourself in your own head, or seeing what you always see in the mirror. It's those differences that make life valuable, and make community valuable, and make diversity valuable. And that might mean that some people are not there yet. They might still be in the fear stage. They might still be afraid. They might still be expressing that as anger. They might still be expressing that as resistance. They might still be expressing that as not wanting to employ you for your skills, and maybe want to employ you as a diversity inclusion officer when that's not what the role is that you apply to. But whatever that thing might be, okay, that diversity aspect with regards to race across the spectrum of institutions has to be led with love, and accepting people as they come. And celebrating those things, both physical, emotional, and skill-wise, that make us who we are and make community valuable. So I think that answers your question. But asking us with regards to embracing and celebrating diversity for race, gender, and sexuality within UK institutions, we have to be less afraid, be willing to do more of what brings people together and less of what separates people, and less of what makes people question their existence to the point where they don't want to exist. These are really serious things we need to think about. And I think for those in this space, or those who might be watching back, or those who might not be on camera now, who have been in a situation where they maybe have not felt like existing, like there's no point in existing because I'm trying to exist and other people are not letting me exist in this space, so what's the point? And I think at that point you recognize what I'm saying. If you've ever been in that situation, then I think those who would dare to reflect on that low point that some of us in this space are likely to have encountered, that they will think differently about what they think is worth being afraid of, and what they think is being worth investing in and loving and learning about, in order to make a sort of society a more a viable place for people to survive and not just to live. I promise I've not prepared these answers. It's just how I do.
No, I know you haven't. I know it really comes from the soul with you. Right down there. So yeah, Nash, same question. How can we start to embrace and celebrate diversity in terms of race, gender and sexuality within UK institutions? I know this might really hit home, like, as a nurse. So yeah, it'd be good to hear your insight.
I want to completely agree with you. I think we need to one, counter fear with love. And what I found as I work at Lewisham Hospital, and I work with a load of aunties, right? And I love them. I love them because they have made me stronger than I could ever have imagined. But what I saw with them is they didn't care. They don't. Once again, I keep going back to this idea of not caring. They are inhabiting that space. They are the nurses there. And regardless of whether you like them or you dislike them, they have a duty of care to you. And they're going to care for you whether you like it or not, or whether you like Black people or not, right? So as a patient that goes into that space, you're kind of met with this kind of like a ward full of Black, African, strong women who, when you turn around and say to them something, they go, okay. And they go about what they go, because the thing is, at the end of the day, they're going to get paid at the, so, but what I think, I mean, that's one side of it. However, what I've come to realize is that in hospitals, when things go wrong, we have this thing called a DATEX. And a DATEX is an incident report. So a lot of these women will, if something happens and someone says something to them, they document it. They say what they need to say, they document it. They're not going to fight with you about it. They will just document it there. It's there on the system. People know that it's happened. People know what's been said, right? So when you come back, you then have a track record. You have a trace of what's going on, when it's happened, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, so I think it's a case of those of us that feel strong enough to kick some of these doors down and go in fighting. I mean, like, straight up, go and fight. Go into these spaces and do that. And if you have to hold someone's hand for them to have that strength to go and do that themselves, then please hold their hand. Because like a lot of us that are here right now, that are here, sat here as panelists, someone helped us at some point and helped us walk through that door and be strong enough to shout from the rooftops. Do you know what I mean? So we kind of need to do that for those that aren't strong enough. And actually, like, when, like, I don't get angry at people that are homophobic or racist to me, like I can't be angry at you. What for? What, I mean, I just, yeah. I think it's because I don't understand the concept of hate. I don't understand it, like, as a thing, but I think it's just because I've never felt hate for anything. I've disliked a lot, but I've never felt hate. Like, I don't know what hate. I don't. Sorry. I don't understand the concept of hate. So like, I think whenever I met with this stuff, like, I'm kind of like, okay, cool. So, express what is it you dislike? Like, what is it about me that upsets you? Like, I want to know. Like, I genuinely just, I mean, not that it's going to make a difference. I'll still be gay at the end of the day, and I'll still be Black. But it'll be interesting for me to know. Like, just why are you drinking poison? Why are you drinking poison? Like, because, anyway, sorry, that kind of seems wishy-washy and stuff, but don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to meet non-violent hate, is what I say. If someone's being violent towards you, then yes, take a step back and protect yourself. But don't be afraid to meet, like, non-violent hate. Like, meet it and square up to it, because the moment you square up to that, like, people kind of have to rethink. And have to rethink themselves. My God, did I just sanction violence? I didn't, did I? No. Okay, cool. Sorry. We're going on mute now.
Thank you, Nash. So, yeah, non-violent, hate, head straight forward to it. So, Nick, moving away from, like, the institutions that exist and more to the policies that influence these institutions, like, what are some systematic changes you'd like to see implemented by the UK government?
Oh, I know you give me
A
this
big boy, I know.
Like, a lot. But in terms of what comes to mind practically in the context of like tackling racism, homophobia, and transphobia. I think, I mean, very, I think this is very fresh for me because I spoke at a rally last weekend around this, but I think for the UK government to actually listen, I know there's a very simple sentence and a very literal sort of, here's a thing, go do it. But I think what we've seen with, for example, the GRA reforms, 70% of people, they asked the public their opinion, 70% of respondents essentially said, yes, we want to remove the red tape around GRA reforms. And
sorry, just to clarify, GRA is Gender Recognition Act.
Yes, sorry. Thank you. So yes, the government did this consultation, said, oh, we want your opinions. Of course, they got 100,000, they got a bunch of responses. 70% of people had essentially said, yes, we want you to change the process for trans people to be able to, the process that trans people need to go through to be able to get a GRC, a gender recognition certificate, with their actual gender on it. And they didn't listen to that. They've basically said, yeah, okay, 70% of you have said, yes, please change it. And they're going the opposite way. They're going to make these changes, which really would and is going to put us in a worse position for trans people. And I bring that up because the trans people of color, and specifically trans women of color, and specifically Black trans women, are going to be so affected by this. And this is what I spoke about last week, that and for context, I was the only non-white person speaking, so there's another thing there of, I think, putting more effort into getting the voices of the people you actually serve. Like, you're there for everyone in this country, not just the white people, not just the straight people, and so on. But I think that's just one thing, is the government actually listening. If they want our opinion on stuff, well, we have to do Brexit because 52% of people said they wanted it, but 70% of people say yes to something and let's just ignore it. There's not consistency there. So I think that would be a change I'd want to see, that there's consistency. How we get there, I don't know. But I think just keep pointing out to the government the double standards that they are setting and the effects that that's going to have on wider society. Because if they say we can ignore something, everyone else is going to start ignoring basic decency, to be honest. And that's my answer to that.
Thank you, Nick. And Camelia, what are some systematic changes you'd like to see implemented by the government?
Yeah, I just want to echo what Nick said, basically. I love my trans community, non-gender conforming and non-binary community, and I think they get the most amount of abuse. Yeah, and it's worse still if they're Black. After so many Black trans women, they die. I think there's like 6 that died this last week. So many of them die, and we need to do more. I don't know the government, but we need to do more to protect them, and that's what I would say. I would really want the Conservatives to actually just stop looking at themselves and, no, not looking at themselves, sorry, I'm tired, it's been a long day. I mean, for me, I really would like the Conservatives just to listen to us when we march, listen to us when we, look at the petitions that we've signed and support the trans community, protect them. Just the vote. Yeah, I don't even know where to start with it, but it's just awful with what they were actually saying now and not supporting us. It's not supporting them. It's difficult. It's a difficult one really for me. Other than I just really want them to support the community, the trans community, and that's all I would say really on that matter. I kind of, to be honest, I do have very little hope that they would, because they don't really care about the community. They don't care about marginalised communities. So, yeah.
Thank you. So we're going to go on to the Q&A, but first we're going to be showing Nash's video for Are You Uncomfortable? Nash, do you want to do a little intro before we play it?
Yeah, okay. So I wrote this at about 3 o'clock in the morning, the Sunday after George Floyd's killing. And I had kind of got myself into this backing and forthing between the news and social media. And it was, and I call it torture by trauma. Because I was literally just watching these traumatic images of Black men being killed or being strangled or being beaten by police constantly, 24 hours a day for a week. And by that point, I wasn't sleeping, and I kind of got myself into this like state. And my boyfriend turned around to me and said, maybe you need to come off social media and turn the TV off. And I did, but I still couldn't sleep. And I wrote this when he was asleep and I couldn't understand why was I uncomfortable but he was, and that's kind of the question, not directed at him per se, but directed at my white friends and my white counterparts. Like, why are you comfortable with this? So yeah, that's what it's about.
Our house, we practice this thing. What is it?
I'm Ariel Sky Williams. I'm 8 years old. I'm unarmed and I have nothing that will hurt you. I'm Ariel Sky Williams. I'm 8 years old. I'm unarmed and I have nothing that will hurt you.
They said it gets easier, but I'm guessing that was another white lie. They call me demagogic, a rabble-rouser, because I call them out while we march in the masses with our fists to the sky. But what do I have left to lose? What do I have to fear when they do not hear my cries? Still, they attempt to make a mockery and chastise. I'm not here to settle the fact you feel guilty. They say reaching the end of the chapter matters, but they forced me to hold up the whole Black community in my hands, like you didn't break each finger. So how do I put the tatters of this never-ending book down? All lives matter, but is life really better today? Do I subdue my heart till it decays? I don't really understand how I should feel right now, much less how I should react. I feel like my heart is screaming and I can't catch my breath. I'm trying to figure out when it became okay to stay quiet, when it became okay to say nothing. Hold on, let's start again. How do I express that I do not give a fuck about your opinion while I'm simultaneously affected by every word that comes out of your mouth? I love my skin and I'm in no doubt that I'm a collection of proteins just like you. So before you judge, remember, I'm a mirror of the violence I've been subjected to by high white society.
We don't wanna have to wait another year. We don't wanna have to cry another tear. I can't. They don't wanna have to show their skin. We just wanna live with love within. I can't.
Are you uncomfortable yet? Are you uncomfortable with the idea that I spell the word nigger and you don't see the stars? Are you uncomfortable with the idea the field and master was swapped for a cell and guard? Are you uncomfortable enough to code switch to fit in? Are you uncomfortable with the fact my name is inextricably tied to my black skin? Are you uncomfortable with the fact celebrities buy black bodies like commodities? Are you uncomfortable with the number of dead black bodies during COVID-19? Are you uncomfortable with the fact we won't let this go? Are you uncomfortable enough to lower your voice when you use the word black to describe a person? Are you uncomfortable knowing they used our peaceful protest to execute us in 8 minutes? Are you uncomfortable knowing they swapped the rope for a knee on blooded streets? Are you uncomfortable with stop and search? Are you uncomfortable with the fear mothers feel when their black sons leave the house? Are you uncomfortable with the words, I can't breathe? Are you more uncomfortable with the looting or the murder? Are you uncomfortable? Are you uncomfortable yet? Are you fucking uncomfortable?
We don't wanna have to wait another year. We don't wanna have to cry another tear. I can't. They don't wanna have to show their skin. We just wanna live with love within, love within. I can't.
Are you uncomfortable yet? Are you uncomfortable yet? Are you fucking uncomfortable yet?
That time they tased me because they said I wasn't complying.
Ariel, are you okay?
What's wrong, baby? I'm okay, I'm alive, all right?
So thank you for that, Nash.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Am I supposed to? Oh, okay.
Yeah, a video started playing afterwards. But yeah, thank you so much. That was really, really beautiful, really, really moving.
Thank you.
I'd like to open up to any questions that people might have. So I might not be able to see you. So if you could just send a message to me in the chat and I can, or someone can unmute your mic.
It's not a question, but I just want to say that was fucking amazing, Nash. Sorry, I just swore. That was...
Fine, there's been lots of swearing, okay.
No, that was just so moving and so powerful, and yeah, you're incredible, and that was so
Thank
good.
you.
So, yeah, thank you.
Agreed.
Is there anything from anyone else anyone wants to contribute? Even just comments, it doesn't have to be questions.
I can jump in there. I'm just curious about what people's experiences have been while BLM was happening, and sort of the queer narrative within the BLM movement. Was struggling. It was definitely on the struggle bus to try and get people to acknowledge that actually when we say BLM, we do mean all BLM, like all BLM, including QTIBIPOC people, and realizing that some of my personal anxieties, frankly. Around my own communities, the heterosexual variety of my communities, I very much associate with being oppressive, and that's something that I'm very aware of when I go into spaces. I need to know, is this a queer space? It's not just good enough to be a POC space, it just isn't. And that's because of what I associate historically with that. I don't know what people's takes were on sort of within BLM, what they were reading, what they were coming across, because I think people were sort of, hoodwinked into thinking that actually, BLM covered all those bases when really we know they didn't. So what was your experience? Oh, so I went through this by myself. Oh.
I was going to say, I kind of originally was quite fearful of going to the protests and going with my other half because he's male and he's white. And I was quite sort of Like, do I go and hide one side of me when I'm there marching with people, or do I go and march for all of me, and not just part of, like, this intersecting thing that is Nash? Like, do you know what I mean? It wasn't until things like the Trans Lives Matter march happened that I really felt comfortable being within the group, not just sort of like I'd been to marches and kind of, you kind of march on the sidelines, so that you've got a kind of quick exit if you need one. And yeah, so that's kind of like where I was. But I think, even then, like, like I was saying before, it's kind of like my thing was not verbal fear, like fear of verbal violence. It was more fear of actual physical, because, like I'm someone that goes to carnival a lot. And I go to, and I've marched in marches on my own, and I was quite fine doing that. But like, I want to show a united front to all of me sometimes. And, do you want to be there at 7 o'clock when it's going to kick off? And, is someone going to turn on you just because you're slightly different? And it's those moments there that I truly fear, and I truly hope that we can get past, and we can get sort of like, BLM to be everyone. Yeah, that's kind of my thing with it. But yeah, I mean, as you can see from the video, like we went to marches and things. But yeah, there's been a bit of a fear that, like, but I've always had that fear of, because a lot of racism has come from both white and non-white people, but a lot of the homophobia that I've received has come from my own community. And that's always kind of scared me a little bit. Like, how do I combat that? What do I do on a bus when a guy's screaming expletives and I don't know, do I get off the bus, or do I go and stand downstairs for him to follow me downstairs? Well, okay, so let me rephrase that. I went downstairs to try and get away from that whole thing, only for him to follow me downstairs, and be in your face. Like, what do you do? Like, how do you anyway, sorry, yeah, I've kind of gone off piece there, but yeah, like I'm gonna stop saying yeah and press mute, but you get what I mean, I hope.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, I've not been able to go to any marches or anything, like, for health reasons, but something that has been consistent is sort of the fears around. Basically, what's important to get across at this event especially is that there's a lot of homophobia within BAME communities, but there's also a lot of racism within LGBT communities, and that's why there is such a struggle. It's hard enough being one thing, and that's something why we've tried to highlight intersectional identities or multiple marginalized identities, whatever you want to call it. It's still all that much harder, because you don't know where you're safe. In whatever way you want to perceive that word safe, there's always a challenge there, and there's always those barriers, even though they might be perceived barriers and not something that you've learned from that situation you've gone into. It's always there, and it's always looming. And yeah, and I think people are usually aware of one of them. They either think that there's a lot of racism in LGBT communities, or the homophobia in BAME communities, and it's rare that the two are acknowledged at the same time. So yeah, that's something that I really want to get across, and it obviously is particularly prominent amidst like these the protests. Kane, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I feel bad for distracting from such an important and pressing topic, but if I could ask the panel, I really enjoyed Nash's invocation of James Baldwin. And I wondered for the rest of the panel, and Nash again, if there was any individual group or social movement that has informed simultaneously your navigation of white supremacy as well as heteronormativity. So if there's these kind of hidden figures who are not part of our everyday kind of cultural consumption, who have been central to your not just your identity, but how you've that have bolstered your rejection of the status quo.
I think so like a big person for me is Monroe Bergdorf. like a massive person for me, because the confidence to put because I think we're sometimes held back by this idea that we need to get on in life, that we need to get higher up the ladder, that we need to earn more money or whatever. But to put everything on the line, to make a statement, for example, that she did a few years back, that actually showed, like, I mean, in the way that it got to the press, it actually showed the racism within the queer community, because it was taken from a private Facebook and handed to the press by another queer person, a queer white male. But it was just the fact she didn't break down, and all of a sudden I realized I can't sit on the sidelines as such. Also, I don't necessarily think it's just her. I've also got a very young nephew, and originally I thought he was quite effeminate. Not that that would make any difference to how I love him or anything like that, but I kind of was fearful that he was, I shouldn't say that. Yes, I was fearful that he was going to grow up queer and suffer the same persecution that I've suffered. And I didn't want him to suffer that. So that's when I really started going hell for leather and writing, because I wanted to make sure that the world that he comes up in is accepting of people. Blanket. Because how can I turn around to him and say in 15, 20 years, oh, but uncle, what did you do? You know, I sat at home and I went raving. What did I do to help make things easier for him? And this is all I'm trying to do at the moment, is I want to make sure that it doesn't matter if he likes football or Barbies, blue, pink, you know, like it just, I want it, you know, I want him to, you know, get box braids if he wants, right? Like I want him to be him, and I never want him to fear being him, because it took me 30 plus years because I didn't have that. So that's what's kind of pushing my rejection of the status quo. And I don't mean just race, gender, sexuality. I mean the status quo in general. Yeah. Sorry, it kind of gets me quite frustrated that it's taken us this long to get to this point. And it still feels like there's so far to go. And I don't understand. It hurts. Like it hurts. It's painful. Because we shouldn't be having these conversations. We shouldn't be needing to have these conversations now. Like, yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, I think for me, it's Angelou, it's King, it's Lord, it's Charles, it's Winfrey. Okay, it's all of these. You know, it's Descartes, it's Foucault, it's Marx, it's all these people, and the conglomerate of what their understanding was through sort of a philosophical lens of how we see things, because we can't step back enough to understand why we feel the way we feel, and so we almost look to the lens of these people. Some are philosophers, some are just personalities that we know. When I say Charles, I mean RuPaul Charles. Okay, I'm not talking about someone fancy. I'm not talking about RuPaul when she's dressed up. I'm talking about RuPaul in an interview, talking about your inner saboteur. You know, this is what I'm talking about. When people are asking questions, to invoke conversation in your own head, when you're in a room on your own watching these. Nina Simone. Have you ever watched Nina Simone perform live and wondered, do I love this, or do I think she's absolutely lost her mind? Okay, people that make you question what you see as normal, what you see as being argumentative or challenging, as opposed to sort of going through a process of self-development, you know, self-actualization, okay, experiencing the moment, okay. These are people who have appeared later on in my experience. The first person that I faced was myself. You know, I've been out on the scene in the United States. I've been out on the scene in South Korea. I've been out on the scene in Thailand. I've been, you know, out on the scene in a number of places. And proximity to whiteness has always prevailed. Okay, as a black person, I can be as entertaining as I think I'd like to be. Okay, in those spaces, proximity to whiteness has always prevailed, and it's coming to terms through further exploration of where these people sit in their different lenses and how they've seen life. That informs the way that I feel about where I think I'm going. I had a lecture the other day, as you know, I'm a doctoral student, and we're sort of doing sociology right now. And the opening question for one of the module tutorials was, who is your, if you could mention one feminist, who would it be? I mentioned Audre Lorde. My lecturer, with letters behind their name that could make its own alphabet, asked me, sorry, who is that? You can be as academic as you like to be, but if you don't know the comprehensive view of what feminism looks like, even including Black feminism, you don't stand a chance at asking that question and making sense and looking like you have, you know, worth to be respected. I'm sorry, because we need to step outside of what we understand. I was in a challenging conversation today with one of my supervisors today as well, on the same course, and this is. University of Chester is a wonderful place, okay, but I recognise that as the sort of the underdog in the situation, I have there is an important journey that I'm on to challenging that which I see as historic academia and asking questions and being told that my academic writing is inflammatory, and that I need to define my terms before I utilise them so that the person reading them can understand them. That's not my problem. I don't care. Okay, I'm not here to repeat the same thing or regurgitate information. I'm here to challenge the system and create something new. And these are sort of the avenues that I navigate in, and that is seen as aggressive, that's seen as challenging. It's never seen as academic. Neither is Audre Lorde seen as academic in the eyes of those who don't respect the work that she does. But I can guarantee she's gone much deeper than many. I'm going to stop there.
I'd say for me, on a very personal level, there's the activist Alok Vaid-Memon, who is American, of South Asian background, and they are, so a lot of the people who I guess I find a lot of connection, resonate with their words, I have found on Instagram. Yes, so Alok, for me, they are very unapologetic, and as someone who has, purely from a superficial aesthetic point of view, as someone who's grown up extremely hairy, been told all sorts about that and had to endure all sorts about that, it is in seeing their words and their work and their unapologetic nature, I have found kind of power in that to embrace my own self, and all that it encompasses. And in a similar vein, I think different poets as well, Travis Alabanza, their words really sing true for myself, and I think it's in finding those people who share that experience of having to endure something that you have endured. But I just wanted to say, like, I totally agree with you, Nash. Like, I hope, it's shocking that we have taken this long to get to this point, and I just seeing the young people today creating that language, when I know I grew up without any language, and you're just like, something feels off, I feel different, what is that? And you see the young people creating this language, like, okay, we've got three words around gender, none of these fit, I'm going to create this word. And I think that's super powerful, and that's something that we need to, I think, encourage, that maybe it's through that we create words, we create language, until ultimately I don't know, maybe we can dismantle stuff. Yeah, that's me.
Thank you so much. I've been given the impossible task to follow this incredible talk with a discussion about our reading, watching, and listening recommendations. And for that reason, we're not doing that. There's no way that anyone can make me want to talk about our reading recommendations right now, because I think there's been so much for us to learn and to resonate with and to go away and process. I don't want to dilute that with changing the topic. But that being said, I'm sure I speak on behalf of everybody who's here, but I just want to say thank you so much to every one of you that has contributed today, because the power I feel that we have absorbed from you is immeasurable. Each of you individually have such an incredible power to not only make us listen to you, but also to hear you. Sorry, I feel like I'm getting emotional. But yeah, for that reason, I just want to say thank you so much. This is something that I'm sure so many of us will go about our lives and remember this evening and think about what the art that's been shared with us, the knowledge that's been shared with us, the experiences that have been shared with us, and we will take away our own things from those, and it will, I hope, create something positive for everybody here who's experienced it. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'll just quickly say that if any of you guys, panelists who have mentioned like any places to donate to or links, relevant links, or your own tags, please post them now. And then everyone can I think you can save the chat from Zoom if anyone wants to do that, so that you've got all of those kind of resources. And we'll do a follow-up post from this event. But yeah, Georgie, you put it perfectly there, so I'm not going to try and add to anything you just said, apart from thanks so much. And all of the panelists, like, you've obviously given up your time to prepare for this and to do it tonight, and it's so appreciated. And hopefully the purpose of this was to kind of bring together more voices from this movement so that we can move forward together, not just as like a one-off event. Obviously it's inspired by the fact that it has been Pride Month, but going forward, hopefully if anyone who's here would like to kind of be more involved, or and be part of this long term, then you can easily get in touch with any of us through the socials or email or anything. And yeah, hope that's it really. Thanks so much, everyone.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you too. It's been like such a pleasure. It's been, so enriching. So thank you, everyone. And if anyone is able to, please donate to the links that are in the chat now. We'll share them on our socials as well, along with a link to Nash's film. So yeah, thank you so much, everybody. It's been such a pleasure.
Thank you for having me.
Much love and peace, my blessings to you all.
Thank you. Enjoy.
Thank you all for having me, and hopefully one of you guys could come to our events. That'd be great.
Yeah, definitely. We'd love to. 100%.
Really good.
You'd love to.
That'd be really good.
We'll get your GoFundMe on the social media as well.
That'd be great. That'd be really great. Thank you. Our next event will be on Sunday, the 26th of July, at 6 o'clock. I'm in the process at the moment of creating a flyer for it, and then once it's done, we'll put it out live, and it's all free for our community. But yeah, the donations will just cover the facilitators that we've hired, because we always pay our facilitators and healers. Thank you.
Sorry, before everyone disappears, I'm running an event on the 27th of July, day after Camellia's.
Yeah.
Did I pronounce that right?
Yeah, you did.
You did. It's with a venue that I used to run. They said it. It's an open mic night. So if you know any poets, if you know anyone that wants to thingy. It will be an online, I don't know what thingy means, anyone that wants to perform. Sorry, let's clarify that. Yeah, there will be spaces there. What I'll do is I'll pop the link and everything on my socials as well, so you can just shout me from there. Okay.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks so much. Just to reiterate, all of you, all the panelists are just unbelievably, yeah, amazing, and like so I'm so blown away by how eloquently you managed to put across all of your points, and I think that it's going to be such a valuable thing that we can all learn from it in terms of, yeah, well, what we take away from this as well, and just generally love everyone, love to you all.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye everyone. Thank you.
Bye.